Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Puddles and this is part 4 in encounter building. Ways that you can make your combats better. Whether that be more fun, more challenging, more fair, more balanced, whatever that means. In this episode we'll be talking more about logical combat. So my previous video was about thinking about the actions that your creatures would do and whether it is logical to their character. And with that, we're going to continue talking about tactics. So, I'm going to use kobolds in this example because kobolds are awesome and they're very dynamic, especially with some of the things that Volos has given us. So, I'm going to give you 3 different scenarios, all based around kobolds. I'm going to give you their motivation as to why, well, not necessarily the motivation, I'm not going to go into that right now, but why they feel confident enough to fight, what tactics they will use in said fight, and whether, like, the scenarios at which they might run away. So, first we have encounter 1, and I'm calling this the Way of the Brute. So we have one kobold dragon shield, this guy here. He's a beast. He's got 44 hit points and 15 AC. These are going to be level 2 characters. I'm not going to play the fight out, I'm just going to talk about it. And then we've got 4 kobolds, and we have 1 winged kobold. So my previous videos, one was about action economy and one was about making each creature, like adding creatures to your fight so it's more dynamic. This encounter would satisfy both of those things that we talked about. The action economy is similar and there are different types with different abilities, so it will make the fight more dynamic and more interesting. But normally, according to the logic video, kobolds wouldn't fight creatures unless they really outnumber them. So why would these kobolds attack this party? Why? Well, the factor that changes that thinking is this kobold sorcerer guy. He's a big badass. He's like the strongest in his tribe. He is the leader. He is amazing. So the others are going to feel more confident. So this type of fight would just be the kobold and the kobold friends and the winged kobold just going in and just throwing themselves at the party. And it would just be like a melee sort of situation where they're just trying to lay into each other. There wouldn't be too many core mechanics or anything changing. It would just be a simple fight one-on-one. And I would say that these kobolds in the fight, these are the regular ones and the winged one, none of them would retreat as long as this guy's alive. That makes sense to me. He's their leader. He's the big scary guy. He nothing can go wrong as long as he's with us. But I would say as soon as he did die, the others would run. They would, and I don't think he would back down either. I think he would just stand until the end of the fight, and if he's the last one standing, he would fight the others off. He wouldn't, just the way that I have set this encounter, he's just this big badass. So that's how I would run that encounter. I would just have it a big melee fest, kobolds bashing on players, players bashing on kobolds. And it makes sense to me that they would go in on this fight because they feel that they have the advantage because they have one really strong kobold with them. 2, I have encounter 2, the Way of the Trap. So instead of the kobold sorcerer, sorry, not the sorcerer, the scale shield, whatever his name is, the big badass, we have 2 inventors. So that's these guys. These guys here, there's one here and one there. They're really good at coming up with traps, thinking outside the box, making weapons from scorpions and using acid and poison and stuff like that. So there are more kobolds, but I would still think if they were just regular kobolds that they would have the disadvantage. They would not attack this party. Logically speaking, they would not want to do this, but they have some really smart guys in their party who maybe would set up a trap. Maybe if they had a trap, it would swing the tide of battle and they would think that they have the advantage. So what you could do is you could have these guys create a trap. You could have the winged kobold come in, drop a rock on them and run away. And then when the party chases them, they spring the trap and then the fight the fight would go from there. Because these guys are a lot weaker, I would have it. I would say, half of the creatures. Once half of the creatures were to die, the others would run away. Or even if the players see the trap and it doesn't go off, then maybe they would just run away. They wouldn't even engage in this because their one advantage, the reason that they're fighting, is has been sprung and they don't get the advantage from it. So perhaps once the trap is sprung, they all just disperse and run away and come back to maybe try set off another trap. Yeah, so that's a second way that you could run like using the exact same creatures. There's different ways that you could logically make them start this encounter. Third, we have the Way of the Tactician. So we have Kobold Scale Sorcerer. So he's a mage. He uses magic. And you would, logically speaking, you would think that he knows that other magic users can be dangerous and are usually weak. So even though the kobolds don't outnumber the players, they have inside information. They have this intelligence that maybe if they target the wizard first, the fight will go their favor, even though they don't outnumber them. And normally, kobolds wouldn't want to fight in this with equal numbers. But because they know this information and they have a really smart mage with them, they'll be willing to go in this fight. So this fight is about them targeting the weak players first. So I would have maybe if they could go in and in the first 2 rounds of combat they could put the wizard down. So all of them are going to target the wizard, and if they can in the first 2 rounds drop the wizard, then they will keep fighting. But if they don't in the first 2 rounds, they run away. Or if the big bad mage guy, the sorcerer, if he dies, then everyone else will run away. Or, if their numbers go down, I think this mage, once a couple of his little minions die, I think he'll run away. He's not going to be like the big shield spear guy. He's more intelligent and he's not as beefy, so he would probably run away once a couple of his friends died. But I think depending on how the first couple of rounds of combat went, they would probably stay if they felt like they could keep this encounter in their favor. So yeah, these are just some examples of ways to make different encounters with the same creatures. So these are all different. Like if I played these out, they would all be extremely different fights. But I'm changing one of the creatures in each of the fights, and they're completely different. And you just have to think about what that one creature that you've added to fight will change, and how you can move your combat around specific pieces that you have at your disposal. But yeah, I hope this has been informative. I hope you have enjoyed it. I'll be making another last one about logical combat, just using things like immunities and flight and stuff like that as to how certain creatures would fight. Just a little bit more advanced stuff. Cool. Thanks for watching.